Yo, multiple analysts are now claiming that there are nation states quietly buying the Bitcoin dip. That's right. Nation states are acquiring this dip. While most people think that the Bitcoin bull run is over, lots of data is suggesting we are seeing whales silently accumulate Bitcoin. And it makes perfect sense. I mean, with the recent news of JP Morgan and Jamie Dimon kind of throwing FUD and manipulating the markets a little bit, fudding MicroStrategy, bringing the Bitcoin price down with it. It makes sense. This is, and I was talking to a Wall Street veteran yesterday, and I brought it up to him. I said, this is manipulation. And he corrected me. He's like, no, Nico, you might perceive that as manipulation as a Bitcoiner, but this is what Wall Street does best. They FUD retail out of their bags so that their institutional clients could buy it on the cheap. And I think that's exactly what's happening. And it's not just institutional clients, it's institutional clients and nation states that are doing this. Before we play you the new clip of Checkmatey from the What Bitcoin Did podcast, check out this clip that came out weeks ago from Anthony Pompliano talking about a specific nation state buying Bitcoin, and it's from CNBC. Let's check out the clip, and then we'll talk about it.
I think there's really three things that people are kind of paying attention to. The first is the United States government at some point is going to announce that they're buying Bitcoin. Creating the initial Bitcoin kind of strategic reserve and sitting the Bitcoin that we already had there was good, but that's kind of the, not the main dish. The main dish is when they start buying, and I think that will happen at some point.
So, again, clip is a couple weeks old, but I want you guys to pay attention to that because this is something that I've heard somewhere else. So I also talked to a corporate veteran, like someone who worked in the corporate world, Fortune 500 companies. And he told me, he's been telling me this the entire year because I was approaching him and I was saying, hey, listen, I'm kind of worried the 4-year cycle. And he looks at me, he's like, listen, Nico, I'm not a Bitcoiner. I can't tell you that I know anything about the 4-year cycle, but I know a little bit about the macro. And you have to understand that Wall Street and the world hasn't figured out that Bitcoin is absolutely scarce. I can tell you for a fact that the Bitcoin price is being, I don't want to use the word manipulated, but is being played around with a little bit so that people take advantage of the dip. But he also said something along the lines of what Anthony Pompliano said, which the thing to me stands out the most. If you were the United States government and you were acquiring Bitcoin, would you want people to know before you announce? Thank you, Opti. The moment they announce that news, what do you think is going to happen to the price? So they can't make that public until they're finished packing their bags. If they don't pack their bags before that information goes public, the price is going to be significantly higher, right? So kind of interesting right there that, he's saying this on Legacy Financial Media, and he's saying it with utmost confidence that he believes eventually the United States government is going to announce that they've been buying Bitcoin. And if you look at who's part of the cabinet, which is Howard Lutnick, right? Bo Hines was part of it. Donald Trump's family, Donald Trump's family's investments in all these Bitcoin native companies. You have Eric Trump, Donald Trump's second oldest son, basically going out to the world, basically saying, listen, buy the dip, Bitcoin's going up forever, Laura. That all points to one thing. And eventually they're going to want their bags to go up. Do you think they're okay with just, the price going sideways? Like, when Trump was inaugurated, the Bitcoin price was 109,000. Today it's at 87,000, and we're 11 months older. So I think that there is a strong possibility by the end of Trump's second term, so by 2028, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 Bitcoin. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that. And that could come with a major announcement like a nation state buying Bitcoin, right? So anyways, here's this other clip from Checkmatey, which is very recent, came out recently from the What Bitcoin Did podcast that's hosted by Danny Knows. So shout out to those guys. Incredible work that they do. And again, Checkmatey's saying something very similar than what Anthony Pompliano is saying. And again, our job is to connect the dots for you guys so that you guys could come to your own conclusion.
If there's one thing I can just help people understand right now, 70% of all of the wealth that's ever been invested in Bitcoin, if we price every UTXO based on when it last moved, 70% has a cost basis above 85K.
That's insane.
70%. This is Bitcoin's new home. So, if you're talking about 30K and 10K and 5K Bitcoin, the truth is it's like ancient history. It just doesn't matter. There's not enough wealth down there. The wealth is all up here. Now, because we're below it, that's a lot of potential sellers on the way back up. So the bulls have got a lot of work to do to get us out of this mess. However, the rotation of this capital, think about who these new buyers are, right? These aren't retail hodlers putting in their pocket money. No one's got these kind of deep pockets. We're talking, there has to be, could be banks, could be sovereigns, could be a bit of everything. I saw the other day, I forget which Gulf state, but there's a Gulf state that bought like $500 million worth of the ETF. So like sovereigns are interested in this kind of thing. And these folks feel like price insensitive buyers.
Yeah.
Where they just accumulate, they're just forever allocators. So there is going to be this rotation. Markets have got to go through this process. It'll take time to hammer out this bottom. But at the same time, these guys probably aren't. They're sailor types. They're not going to sell. So there's going to be this process of, as we hammer out a floor, wherever we find that clearing price, Bitcoin's got a really bright future ahead of it.
Yeah.
So a lot to unpack there, right? A lot to unpack there. And I also want to pick Opti's brain. Me and Opti are going to have a conversation because he had a dinner with a veteran last night, and he got a lot of alpha for you guys. So we're going to be talking about that. But essentially, you have Anthony Pompliano and you have Checkmatey. Checkmatey's a very well-known and respected analyst in the Bitcoin space, both saying the same thing, right? They both believe that sovereign wealth funds are buying. This has confirmed that one of the Middle Eastern states, a big one, a very wealthy one, has been accumulating Bitcoin.
Well, it's multiple at this point.
Multiple have been accumulating Bitcoin. If you think that the Bitcoin conference in MENA, that specific side of the world, and Saylor making the trip over there, like to the Middle East, if you think that's like happenstance or coincidence, like you have your head buried in the sand. So yeah, I think it's all but confirmed that nation states are buying Bitcoin. Now, what's really interesting to me too is Michael Saylor's thesis, which is he thinks that the first country that uses their money printer to buy Bitcoin is essentially going to win by default, right? And there's only, and the way that Saylor phrases it is like, look, like there's only there's only enough room for one country to buy 10 to 15 to 20% of the supply. Multiple countries can't do that. The question is, which country is going to be first to the punch? I think that it could be the United States of America. And again, it's because of the incentives that are in place. You have Eric Trump, again, Donald Trump's, I think, second oldest son, talking about the American Bitcoin mining. He posted videos about that. They've been going to every single Bitcoin conference throughout the year. Trump owns the second largest Bitcoin treasury company. Sorry, not the second largest, the sixth largest Bitcoin treasury company. We read you guys an article from, I think it was Bloomberg yesterday, talking about how the Trump's family fortune has taken a hit because of the recent. I think the Trump family is paying their price of tuition, just like, Nayib Bukele and Michael Saylor did, once upon a time. So yeah, man, I think this is interesting as hell. I think this is, I think that eventually, what a huge catalyst would be for the second round up. And again, if I told you that the president was going to be pro Bitcoin 2 years ago, you wouldn't have believed me, right? If I told you that Larry Fink would be promoting Bitcoin, you wouldn't have believed me. So, if I told you that a nation state was going to make Bitcoin legal tender, El Salvador, you wouldn't have believed me. if you take a look at the game theory, you would realize that all of these things were inevitable. All of these things were eventually going to happen, but just because you think it's going to happen because of the game theory, that it's still surprising when you still see it for the first time, right? So I think I'm making a prediction here, not financial advice. I think eventually you are going to hear an announcement potentially during this administration that the United States of America has been acquiring Bitcoin. And I think that the reason that they haven't come out and been public about it is because they just don't want the price to go up. Because the moment they make that announcement, to borrow Max Kaiser's famous quote, you're going to see a global hash war the way that the way that you've never seen before. It's going to be utmost madness. It's going to be insanity. The amount of countries that are going to be jumping in, trying to build their stacks, right? So yeah, that's what I'm seeing. Again, you're not hearing it from me. You're hearing it from Anthony Pompliano, Checkmatey. Again, I heard it from a Fortune 500 veteran, very similar language to what Anthony Pompliano is saying. Opti, you had a dinner last night. You talked to a veteran of Wall Street as well, and you were dropping some alpha this morning on me while we were preparing the show. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yeah, no, I'll expand towards the end of the show on the culture, but more specifically on this topic. The first thing I do want to hit on is it sounded like Checkmatey was low-key trolling Nico. It's not going to 30K, guys. You heard it here first. It's not going to 30K ever again. I don't know about ever again. Obviously, there's no guarantees here, but that was the first thing I heard. I'm like, shots fired. The chat is vindicated today because they got pretty upset when you were saying that, Nico. But okay, the kind of greater point to be made here. I think it just makes perfect sense. Again, whether you believe the Trump administration or not, they have very clearly came out and said, we want to be the Bitcoin superpower of the world. Obviously, they've been doing this whole budget neutral dance, and they've acquired more Bitcoin budget neutrally, 127K that they seized from, a hacking criminal group. And therefore, they are accumulating on that front. Well, we still haven't seen an audit of all the coins, but allegedly, supposedly, the U.S. now holds around, I believe it's like 327,000 coins. So they are winning on that front. But to Pomp's point, and me and Nico actually had this conversation off air before, where it just makes no sense for the U.S. government. And I don't know all the legalities of this. Obviously, I have friends that are like, you think you think they're following the laws here to acquire Bitcoin? I'm like, look, I don't know what the legalities are of trying to acquire a commodity like Bitcoin, but it just makes perfect sense to me that you would secretly kind of build your position and then you announce it once you have your bags packed. Like, that is just, DCA 101 in Bitcoin. There is literally no good outcome that comes from a nation state such as the United States, the leading superpower, the world reserve currency, to basically telegraph every single one of their buys. Obviously, they have telegraphed that they want to acquire more, but it really is hard for me to understand how they aren't acquiring Bitcoin. And I think once we finally get that signal that they are acquiring Bitcoin or they bought Bitcoin, it kind of goes back to the standard Wall Street play. It's like, once you know that they're buying this thing, you got to ask yourself, why do I know this? Why me on Main Street? Well, how did I hear that this is what they're doing? It's because they finished packing their bags. Their position is already met. And so now they can tell the market, yeah, we have been acquiring this. And especially as I've been kind of saying since the kind of price crash we've seen in the last couple of weeks, that it just makes perfect sense to me. And the whole like JP Morgan attack of strategy, JP Morgan, there's the narrative now, JP Morgan wants to suppress the Bitcoin price. There's kind of different angles on that, but just the general idea that I've been saying for you guys, just from a first principle view here, if you were an institution and this is the first year that you can get into Bitcoin, what would you want to do? You would want to get a good price point for that Bitcoin. You would try to do whatever you can to make sure that this price doesn't get away from you. Obviously, in the short term, that is fully possible. In the long term, I don't think they're going to be capable of controlling Bitcoin like that. But it just makes perfect sense to me. If you are these, the Wall Street titans out there, and now you are legally, regulatorily, I don't even think that's the word, via regulations, able to finally invest in this new budding asset, this new budding monetary network, this new money. What would you want to do? You would want to acquire it at a good price. Now, I have heard people say that there is this kind of like, they really don't care about the price. Like, what's the difference between 100K and 87K or 100K and 126K? And it's like, I don't know, like 25%, 30% discount. Like, that's a significant portion of your initial buys. You want to get the best bang for your buck. And so I think it does make perfect sense to me. And I've been calling it the billionaire FUD playbook for years, where it's like the billionaires, they come out here, they FUD Bitcoin. What do they secretly do later on? They're either acquiring Bitcoin, or they launch Bitcoin products later. And then you're like, oh, so you literally just FUDed the price so that retail gets scared out. Then you position yourself. And then finally, when you're positioned, you're like, this thing's cool. Like, retail, get back on the ship here. Like, you need to be buying this. It's almost like the reverse Jim Cramer. If Jim Cramer tells you to do something, you probably should do the opposite. Well, it's the same thing. If they're telling you not to do something, you should probably do that thing. So that's kind of like my general view. I think one more thing that I heard, and I saw Checkmatey said, and I didn't fully, I think it was in this podcast, but he said something that was very interesting to me. He said, if you take all of the amount of coin that's been sold this year and you account for all of it, and obviously there's been a lot of selling pressure, but if you factor in how much of that was being bought up by the ETFs, if I remember exactly what he said, he's like, the ETFs the inflows are really only buying 25% of all the coin that's being sold. So who's buying that other 75%? We're getting wrecked today on the internet. We're having electrical issues over here. So again, if the ETFs are only buying 25% of all the coin that's hitting the exchange, and again, the price of Bitcoin has been essentially flat, which you can think all the sellers have been bought up by, people that want to own this thing. So again, Bitcoin's, supply demand dynamics are probably the purest in the world. So with every seller, there is a buyer. Now, if we've seen this much coin hit the exchange and the ETFs are only gobbling up 25% of that, then there's a huge whale out there that is buying this Bitcoin thing. It's not just all of us plebs out here. And we did get a few kind of data points, and I'll pull that up here because I have been kind of just like rambling on you guys. But this was an interesting chart that I saw. Essentially, whale versus, can you guys see that? Yeah. Whale versus retail delta shows that for the first time in Bitcoin history, whales are this heavily positioned in longs compared to retail traders. Whenever these levels get this high in the past, we saw local bottoms forming, but also large positions getting liquidated. And so you are seeing that it's not just the, 10,000 plus whales that are acquiring. You're seeing this like 1,000, I don't know what the moniker is for them, but people are holding about 1,000 coins that are scooping everything up right now while retail is panicking. I mean, I told Nico, he was on the show saying we're going to 30K next year, and I'm like, nah, dude, you're wrong. You're 100% wrong. I'm like, it's going to go sideways. We have bottom. Obviously, this is just kind of me speculating. But again, we have seen some interesting stuff happen with new data in the last couple of days, specifically this one as well. More than 8% of total Bitcoin supply moved in the past 7 days. And the last time that this happened or something very similar happened marked the absolute bottom. In March 2020, it was at $5,000. And at December 2018, it was at $3,500. So we are seeing that the amount of buying right now, it doesn't really connect to me that this is, we're going to go lower. There's just too much kind of interest in this price point. And remember, and I will kind of spread on this conversation later on today. As Nico said, I did go to dinner last night with Oliver Valles and Sal, the Simply Bitcoin trainer. We got dinner. It was super cool. This guy's been trading on Wall Street before I was even born, and I was picking his brain the whole night. And I was basically just trying to confirm my bias on this. I'm like, is my thinking correct here? And the kind of takeaway was what I've been telling you guys on the show. And I didn't even say this to him. I kind of just asked him, like, what do you think's going on right now? And he essentially said what I told you guys and been telling you guys, and what I think is actually going on is you got to understand that there is a new type of investor in the market. It is the institutions and things. I will kind of pull some data. I will do a little chartboarding later on, you guys, in the culture, forgive me. But if you look at the price of Bitcoin from 2023, it looks like it's fundamentally changed. Now, obviously, everyone is still on the fence of whether there's a 4-year cycle or not. Did we hit the top in October? Because it would align perfectly, Q4 top. It would be perfect kind of 4-year cycle playing out. But what we're seeing is kind of going back to that IPO meme. The early investors, the early revolutionaries, the early true believers in Bitcoin, they basically hit their price point. And it's not even that many whales if you're being completely looking at the data. But what they're doing is they pass the baton to the institutions at 100K. And I don't know if you understand how IPOs work, but usually when an IPO goes live and the initial holders sell out, that's the start of the price. That's where everyone looks at the stock price and is like, this is the beginning. So you can look at 100K as the beginning for the institutions to come here. And they have 80-year, at least 30, 20, 50, maybe generational time perspectives on this. As Checkmatey was saying, it's like they're not coming in this thing and trying to flip it in 4 years. They're trying to hold this and corner this as they probably should be, and they want to hold it for a long time. So again, it all goes back to, I think a lot of us are totally underestimating what it means for the institutions to come in Bitcoin, what it means to have this new investor start to chomp at the bits for this Bitcoin thing. And yes, they are going to use a lot of, their kind of Wall Street algorithmic trading mechanisms for them to silently and stealthily buy this Bitcoin, or potentially, like TWAP sells, time weighted average price sells. I think that's what it is. I forget what it is. So you're starting to see all these dynamics play out, and a lot of us Bitcoiners are still using old paradigms on what we think the price is doing. We're still using old cycle thinking. We're still looking at 4 data points and being like, it's got to repeat this same thing. When if you look at this cycle, it's been 100% different. Everything's been different. We got an all-time high before the halving. We didn't get a 2025 parabolic run. Since we didn't get a parabolic run, most likely we're not going to see, a huge bear market dump. And if that is the case, and we continue to go up into 2026, because these institutions here have basically started this unlimited bid, and I think we underestimate what an unlimited bid actually does and looks like. But it is just very interesting. I'm going to show you some more data from this conversation. Again, shouts out to Oliver, super cool dude. Met him last night. Shouts out to my boy Sal for inviting me to dinner. It was great to kind of compare notes with someone that's been doing this, been a trader, one of the earliest internet traders out there. And now he sees what we all see. It's like the end game isn't more dollars. The end game is acquiring more Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the finish line here. And these institutions, some of them are still playing this fiat game where they think you just buy Bitcoin so you can gain more dollar values. Whereas all of us here that hang out in the chat, that are on the show, that really understand what Bitcoin is the finish line. You just want more Bitcoin than the day before, or the week before, the month before. The name of the game is accumulation. It's what I've said years ago. It's the Bitcoin ABCs. You want to always be constantly buying. This is how you win this game. And in the face of everything we've seen, and I told you guys this yesterday or on Friday, I forget exactly the day, but it's like, if you are looking at what's going on right now, you probably want to be doing what the institutions are doing. And what are they doing? It seems like they are just accumulating this without a care for the price for the long term. So it's not so much what they It's what they do. All right, guys, I'm gonna start ranting. I don't know what's going on. We're having some issues over here, but yeah, Nico, this is also a good tweet. Is this me or is this you? This is me. Okay. Arthur Hayes also, whether you love him or hate him, he's also kind of agreeing with this idea that Checkmatey said that 80K is probably the bottom and the reset of liquidity and leverage, and that as the money printer and the liquidity situation start to kind of ramp back up, we might be in for some good action here. And so he goes, minor improvements in dollar liquidity. Fed QT stops December 1st. This Wednesday will probably be last fall in, I don't know what he means in BS. Maybe it's Bitcoin and stocks. I don't know. Maybe it's just bullshit. I don't know. Anyways, U.S. banks increase lending in November. We chop below 90K, maybe one more stab down into low 80Ks, but I think 80K holds, might start nibbling, but leave the bazooka until the new year. And I think this might be kind of the view that a lot of people are looking at. They're just, constantly acquiring right now because a lot of people are saying 2026, we have a lot of tailwinds in our benefit. And it might just blow all of our expectations out of the water. Things could be fundamentally different. And that's kind of like the main takeaway with the institutions coming in Bitcoin. And my friends fight me on this all the time. But there's just something in the water, for lack of better terms. When I look at the institutions coming in and I'm like, I think it's fundamentally changed how this thing moves forward. And I'll make a case for this later on in the culture, but I've been kind of ranting for a minute. So Nico, jump back in.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, I don't know what's going on. We have to reset the router, I guess, every day before we go live.
Yeah. You did have like power surges earlier, so
yeah. So
we're gonna power through today, and we'll reset it.
We're gonna power through today, but anyways, thanks for bearing with us. I think, anyways, guys, smash the like button if you guys are enjoying today's show. But I think Opti, you just dropped a ton of alpha, right? But the long story short is this, right? If you have these giant nation states, I mean, it reminds me of the example of the Kingdom of Bhutan, right? So you had this small Himalayan kingdom that they were mining. 1/3 of their GDP is in Bitcoin. And they're mining so much Bitcoin, they're building a new international airport out of from the revenue that they're getting from Bitcoin mining. It's essentially free energy for them because they have a tremendous amount of hydroelectric capability. They're right next to the Himalayas. There's that runoff that comes. The ice melts, it turns into rivers, right? They have all this hydroelectric capability and capacity. The thing is, we would have never found out that they were mining if it wasn't for the Celsius lawsuit. The Celsius lawsuit made a lot of this information public. And then only because that information was public, then did we find out that BitDeer had this major investment in this small country in Asia called the Kingdom of Bhutan. And they're literally as deep as you can go. It's a nation state, has 1/3 of their GDP in Bitcoin, right? So they would have never told anybody. So it begs the question, what Checkmatey is saying, what Pompliano is saying, Checkmatey is saying, listen, the bottom is 80K. It's not going to go below that. I disagree, by the way. I've heard this story. I've heard this story 1,000 times. I disagree with that. He could be right. I disagree. But he's saying, look, with the amount of selling that's happening and the fact that Bitcoin has held up the way it has, tells me that there are people with very large pockets that are willing to buy the dip. And then connect that with what Opti's saying about the Bitcoin's IPO moment, the original holders of Bitcoin, the people that bought in 2011, 2012, 2013, they've more than 100x their money. And they didn't have the liquidity to cash out before without completely, tearing down the price. This changed this cycle with the introduction of the Bitcoin ETFs and basically Wall Street's involvement. Now they have the necessary liquidity where, if you guys remember that sale from Galaxy, where literally someone just smash sold $8 billion worth of Bitcoin. And I think the Bitcoin price fell like 3%. If that same event would have happened in 2021, 2022, or 2017, we would have seen an 80% correction the next day, right? So there's a tremendous amount of buy pressure. And the question that I think Opti and I have, I think the question that Checkmatey is asking himself is, who in the hell has these types of bags? Who in the hell? It's not retail. Who in the hell has these types of bags in order to maintain the price at these levels? Even with JP Morgan, one of the world's largest banks, with their, us. Why does this keep happening?
I got you, dude. I got you.
With the shenanigans that they're doing and attacking, MicroStrategy and kind of shorting the stock, and with all of those things happening, despite all of that, the price went from 120K to 80K and right back. And right now we're back at 89K, right? Or 87K or 88K or around that level. So despite all the bullshit, because that's what it was, we've only gone down to these levels. Now, that could change. We could be on the verge of a traditional bear market like we've seen. I think this is where me and Opti disagree, right? But, that's yet to be determined, because right now, this is what I want you guys to understand. We are already in uncharted territory. The rule of thumb is 3 green, 1 red. So 3 years green and then 1 year red. That's the rule of thumb. That's what everyone knows. That's been the Bitcoin cycles. So far this year, if the price stays where it's at and we head into December, it's going to be 2 green, 1 red, and then 1 yet to be determined, right? And this goes back to what Lynn Alden was talking about. I think we played you guys we played you guys this clip where she was basically making the case that, look, like, you're not going to have these giant drawdowns without this euphoric blow off top. You're not going to have it, right? So again, it's like, it'd be weird to say, oh, Bitcoin's headed into a bear market. Dude, as it stands right now, Bitcoin has been in a bear market. All of 2025 has been a bear market. And we've slowly been discovering what's behind the scenes. But basically, if for you guys to understand in a very simplistic fashion, and then we'll move on to the other segments of the show, what has happened in 2025 has been this giant transfer of Bitcoin from individuals to institutions and potentially countries and nation states. And I want you to pull up that graph that you had, Opti, because it was super useful, from the whales accumulating. Okay. Because I think that's the signal right there. It really kind of shows the case that we're making. And that could be the reality, ladies and gentlemen. The reality could be that, look at that. Like, I mean, look at that. Let's make this full screen. Like, look at that. You've never seen that before. So you had this massive dip that just happened, fallen from the highs of 126K to, 80K. And look at the amount of whales buying that dip. Look at the amount of whales stacking the dip. And this goes back later. This goes back to a later time. Look at the selling that was happening when we were like on the decline. Look at the buying that's happening right now. And again, a whale is someone that's defined as someone who has 1,000 Bitcoin or more. Una ballena, bro. Una ballena, right? Humpback with the water coming out the back. But yeah, man, I mean, I think, look, guys, if you're paying attention to the data, you're connecting the dots here. There could be a very solid case that, 2025 was this shakeout institutional market. and they
or
want
transition, baton passing, however you want to frame it.
Could we talk about that for a second, Opti, before we move on? Because you were telling me about how the same thing happened when the gold ETFs were released.
Yeah, I'm going to save that later because I'm going to do some chart boying. But yeah, that someone said it in the chat as well. But I don't want to. Well, I mean, I could no. Let's save it for the rest of the show. But there is some alpha in there and that idea.
All right, guys. Well, we're going to be right back in just a little bit. We still have tons to cover. If you guys are enjoying today's show, make sure to smash that like button. We're having a little bit some internet issues here. We'll have that fixed by tomorrow. So bear with us. Roll with the punches, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, we're going to be right back just a bit. But before we do that, I do want to give a very special shout out to our lead sponsor, bitcoinwell.com. Buy real Bitcoin. Sell your Bitcoin exchanges, sell your Bitcoin IOUs. They hold your keys. Bitcoin Well delivers real Bitcoin to your private wallet. What does that mean? It's a non-custodial exchange, meaning they don't hold your Bitcoin. They don't even give you the ability to hold your Bitcoin. When you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. If you're a family office, a high net worth individual, a trust, or an organization, check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. Bitcoin Well Infinite is an OTC desk designed for investments of $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more. It's a tailored white glove service. You're going to have a dedicated account representative that, again, is going to help you buy Bitcoin and take it into self-custody. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC today. All right, everybody, it's going to be a fantastic show. We're going to be right back in just a bit. I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates. Instead of just writing them down on paper, paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store. All right, everybody, we are back at the time of recording. Wait, before we do that, guys, go to stampseed.com. Their 12-word seed plate just went live, ladies and gentlemen. You guys were requesting this. Again, you want to stamp your seed phrase on titanium. You don't want to write down your seed words on paper. No better place to do it than the StampSeed kit. You can do it in the privacy of your own home. You can hammer each word into the plates, and this will survive the test of time. Use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is $87,690. Block height, 925,147. Market cap, 1.75 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 5.96%. Decline from all-time high. We're currently at a 30% discount. Anyways, Andreas Antonopolis, who played a very special role in my orange pilling journey, because I've told you guys this story 1,000 times. When I got into Bitcoin and when I started consuming Bitcoin content, there was no Bitcoin content. It did not exist. There was Max and Stacy, Max on the Kaiser Report, which wasn't really optimized for YouTube, but you would see the clips every now and then. And then you would see Andreas. Andreas had a whole YouTube channel completely dedicated to orange pilling people. He would lecture people off the cuff. So he would do a 30-minute lecture in front of giant audiences, and he would tell you about why Bitcoin, why you need Bitcoin, what are the things that Bitcoin fixes. Andreas has dropped a little bit off the radar these days. I think I think he fought the good fight, and I think it comes to a point in every Bitcoiner's life where I think eventually they ride into the sunset, and I think that's what happened to Andreas. So he's taken more of a backseat. He's not as vocal anymore. He's not as present anymore. But his words still hold a lot of weight because of the amount of what he's contributed to the movement, what he's contributed to Bitcoin education. And he had some thoughts regarding the core versus knots debate, which I think we're kind of threading the needle a bit. But I think that it's worthy to listen to. So let's check it out.
Summarize. Any data can be encoded as any data. One person's spam is another person's content. The power to decide what is and what isn't allowed is dangerous because it leads to censorship. It also leads to giving the developers power over the protocol, which will eventually be used by someone else. And if the developers are shown to be able to censor, then they will become required to censor in any and all jurisdictions where they live. And so that's extremely dangerous. And people will be able to put ordinals and shitpegs and JPEGs and NFTs and garbage and Bible verses. I already said garbage, and other stuff on the blockchain, whether we want them to or not. And so I would rather people put it in an op return where we can then disregard it, prune it, and not have to carry it anymore forever, than if they hide it in other places of the protocol because we made op return too hard. And so I actually think that's a better solution.
So very contentious, I would say. But from what I'm gathering, just based on his output, is just basically like, look, like it seems like he's taking Core's side while simultaneously not taking Core's side. I think he brings up a very good point regarding knots, and this is I think a conversation that needs to be had, which is like, look, like once you start censoring transactions, the problem with that is who gets to decide what transactions can be censored or not. And then what happens when governments start to find out that you can censor transactions, and then they start putting pressure on. We'll have this fixed tomorrow, guys. Appreciate the support. As you know, what is happening? Oh my God, what is happening? It just keeps happening. We're gonna figure this out by tomorrow, guys. But I think the key with what he was saying, Opti, is he was taking the side of Core, but he was also not taking the side of Core. He was basically like, look, like the op return thing can be fixed, right? And the going down the path of censorship where developer gets to choose what transaction is okay and what transaction isn't okay, again, could be co-opted. And I think he has a very, very good and valid point with that, right? Like the whole point of Bitcoin and the reason it's worked, it's because it's fully decentralized, and because it's fully decentralized, it can't be co-opted. As soon as something becomes centralized, as soon as there's a single point of weakness, I think nation states and governments are going to try to exploit that. Like it's an inevitability, and I think that's a very solid concern coming from him. So I think he took more of Core's side, but simultaneously he did address the fact that, look, like we could fix this op return thing. It is, it is fixable. We could address it. But at the same time, we have to be very careful with the censoring. So I want to get your thoughts, bro, because clearly he took a side there. He took more of the core side than he took more of the not side. There are some jabs that he threw as well.
Yeah, the Bible, that was crazy.
So yeah, I don't know. What are you thinking, Opti?
Well, I mean, mine is mine is trolling the Bible verses. I pretty much agree with what he was saying. You guys have been asking me all the time, take a stance on the core versus not stuff. So you guys called me a coward for saying it. I'm like, dude, run whatever you want. I agree with the not narrative in principle. I also want to see purely monetary transactions. But when I talk to my friends that are in the mining industry and they kind of explained to me what was going on, it was exactly what Andreas basically said. It's like, you can't stop the spam. And even if you can, then it does go into a slippery slope of, if you can censor transactions, then it will probably, actually lead to more censorship here. And the one thing that really kind of hit me was from one of my mining buddies. You guys know him. He's Alex. He was at Kaboom Racks. Now it's Mega Miner. He's basically telling me, once you understand that you can get out of band transactions through with just needing one miner, is like, oh, so like it really doesn't fix anything. And that was the case that I've heard. It's like, I think people are going to essentially, like, people like to graffiti on freaking cathedrals and stuff. It's like, people want to do JPEGs and all of this stuff. And if we're being honest, and this might be a hot take, but like the JPEGers and the ordinals kind of like held us down during the last year when no one was using the blockchain. Like, they were paying the miners. I don't like it, but like, that's what the facts were. So I from what I heard, it made sense to me. Again, it's a little above my pay grade. That's kind of why I stayed out of it. I'm not updating my node. I'm still on like 28. But from what I heard, and the kind of takes that I saw, was the best place to kind of put that spam was, like Andre said, in that op return limit. And so I don't know, man. Like, to me, this makes sense. Maybe it's because I also have a soft spot for Andreas, and he is kind of confirming what I believe myself. Yeah, and then, I have been trolling. Like, I was kind of hoping that we would get a it wouldn't have been a good thing, but I was kind of hoping we'd get an airdrop here, get a hard fork airdrop, Nods coin. I'm with that, but no, that's not going to happen. I think it would. There is a fork contention going on right now, and it probably would do more damage, but it does lead to kind of my bigger narrative I've been saying on the show throughout the last couple of weeks. It does seem like a lot of us have been distracted with this Knots Core thing. And when I kind of had friends explain it to me that were a little closer, not just developers, but closer to the mining side, it just seemed like a nothing burger. And I'm like, I think the real attack's coming from Wall Street, guys. But hey, I know you guys love that debate. People really been adamant and passionate about it. But if Bitcoin's going to die because of spam, then it wasn't what we thought it was. And so that's always kind of been my view on this.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like the free market view on the whole spam debate, which is like, if people want to pay extra to put, extra things on the blockchain, I think the free market will take care of that. But I think the Ocean guys do have some valid concerns as well, right? So I think the needle needs to be threaded here, but I think going down the censorship route is potentially dangerous. I really believe that.
Me too.
But also, the concerns about putting illicit content on the, because guys, you have to understand this, right? And this is the whole debate around the core 30 thing, right? Which is they increased the op return limit. I believe that's what happened, right, Opti? So when you increase the op return limit, basically the case that's being made is people are going to start putting illicit content on the Bitcoin blockchain, and because it's illicit content on the Bitcoin blockchain, they're going to start raiding homes, right? And if you run a node, technically you have that illicit content on your node, right? Even though you didn't do it on purpose, just because you have the Bitcoin blockchain synced with you, right? So there are ways to mitigate that, even including with Core 30, by the way. With Core 30, you can set what your op return limit is, but I think most people are just not going to do that, right? So, you know, there are some valid concerns. I think, you know, the community is going to, you know, it's going to figure this out. And we'll see what happens, but we'll keep you guys updated. Anyways, so China seems to be mining Bitcoin again. I mean, not surprising at all. They are officially the third largest Bitcoin miner in the world, despite the China mining ban. Breaking news coming out of Reuters. We're going to tell you more about it after the break.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without having to sell your Bitcoin. They've issued $9 billion in loans to over 10,000 customers since 2018. I absolutely love these guys. Not only do I have an account with them, but I also have a loan. And what I love about them is that there are no monthly payments, and you could pay back the loan at any time. As soon as you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you'll have cash in your account within 24 hours. Over 1,000 five-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or sat of customer money. Go to learn.ledin.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones, they don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitKey. If you already self-custody your Bitcoin, you know the deal with hardware wallets by now. Complex setups, clumsy interfaces, and a seed phrase that can be lost, stolen, or forgotten. BitKey fixes that. BitKey is a multi-sig hardware wallet built by the team behind Square and Cash App. It packs a cryptographic recovery system and built-in inheritance feature into an intuitive, easy-to-use wallet with no seed phrase to sweat over. It's simple, secure, self-custody without the stress. Time named BitKey one of the best inventions of 2024. Get 20% off at bitkey.world. That's BITKEY.world with the code SIMPLY. All right, everybody, we are back. I do want to give a shout out again to our sponsor. Guys, you want to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. After all, self-custody is the revolution. I'm holding in my hand the BitKey device. All you got to do is you put your fingerprint on it. Boom, the light turns green, and you tap this with your smartphone, and boom, you sign the transaction. It's ready to go. So use the promo code SIMPLY, scan the QR code on your screen. It will take you again to the bitkey.world website. Get yourself a BitKey hardware wallet today. Has multi-sig built in. It has inheritance built in, and it's made by our friends over at Square, Block, and Cash App. So guys, go get yourself a BitKey wallet today. Anyways, use the link in the video /podcast description or scan the QR code. Breaking news, China returns as third largest Bitcoin mining hub with a 14% share, despite it being underground. Underground activity expands as cheap power, miner demand, and softer policy signals support a renewed mining push in key provinces in China. Bitcoin mining is experiencing a significant revival in China, even though the activity was formally banned in 2021. After almost disappearing from the global landscape, China has climbed back to the third position with an estimated 14% share of global mining by October. The resurgence is driven by miners and companies quietly operating in regions with abundant and inexpensive electricity, particularly Xinjiang, where excess power and rapid data center construction created favorable conditions. Miners told Reuters that surplus electricity in places such as Xinjiang and Sichuan are encouraging new underground projects, and some former miners have returned. Data provider CryptoQuant estimated that 15 to 20% of global mining capacity now operates in China. According to the article, Canaan, a leading mining rig producer, has seen a sharp rebound in domestic sales, helped by higher Bitcoin prices and uncertainty around United States tariffs that slowed overseas demand. Although the Chinese government has not publicly reversed its stance, its approach appears to be softening. Hong Kong's stablecoin legislation and discussions about yuan-backed stablecoins suggest a more flexible outlook on digital assets. Despite that, hash price hits an all-time low. Bitcoin hash price fell to a new all-time low on Friday. This metric represents the revenue a miner can expect to earn from a given amount of hash rate. Hash price is determined by four main inputs, which are network difficulty, the price of Bitcoin, the block subsidy, and transaction fees. Hash price generally moves higher when Bitcoin price or fee volume rises. It drops when mining difficulty increases. As Bitcoin is down more than 30% since the October peak, combined with subdued transaction fees and a network hash rate just around 1 zettahash, 10% below recent highs, has pushed miner revenue to new lows. The next difficulty adjustment is expected on Wednesday and is projected to decline by a little more than 2%. So miners are feeling the pain right now. I believe I was looking at some of the data, and it was quite interesting. It was basically like most miners are underwater in terms of the cost of production is actually higher than the amount of Bitcoin that they're getting from it. But I want to open up the conversation. If you can make a thank you, Opti, you read my mind. What's really interesting is China, the most powerful centralized government on the face of the planet, banned Bitcoin mining. The hash rate dropped by 50%. Took the price down with it. The hash rate recovered to new all-time highs within 9 months. Hash rate represents the amount of computational power actively mining the Bitcoin protocol and network. And it recovered within 9 months. Not only did it recover, it decentralized in the hash rate. And then the country that bans Bitcoin mining now is the third largest Bitcoin miner in the world, even though it's not officially approved by the government. From my take on that article, it seems like the government is looking, they're just putting their head in their sand. They're pretending it's not happening. But I think the most important lesson here is incentives are so effing powerful. And fundamentally, that's why I believe Bitcoin wins at the end, because it has better incentives, right? Like compared to fiat currencies or state money that requires coercion in order for it to function, Bitcoin, it just has incentives. The hash rate dropped by 50%. It created a huge incentive for Bitcoin mining entrepreneurs to start setting up facilities all over the place. Why? Because the reward was just increased by 50% overnight when those miners disappeared. And what did that incentive structure create? Within 9 months, the hash rate recovered to all-time highs. That's what happened. I mean, that's crazy, dude. That's so crazy. This is how resilient the Bitcoin network is. The most powerful totalitarian country, centralized government country on the face of the planet. You could make the argument that the second most powerful country on the face of the earth, that their military parades are just like, everyone is walking in lockstep. It's like hundreds of thousands of people. There's like tanks rolling down the street. It's effing crazy. This country could not only not make Bitcoin go away, but the incentives of Bitcoin are so good that entrepreneurs in that country are willing to take the risk to mine Bitcoin within that country because they see it as a business opportunity. And it's interesting how the tariffs are playing a role into this, because it goes back to the United States. A lot of these miners are being shipped from China. Like, China's the manufacturing hub, Shenzhen, right? I know like some companies are trying to move the manufacturing out to Vietnam and stuff like that, but still the majority of the miners are still manufactured in Shenzhen or the Shenzhen region. And like, now you see what the tariffs are coming into place, and a lot of these miners are like, look, it doesn't make economical sense to ship these miners into the United States because I have to pay a tariff to the United States government, and that makes me even less profitable. It actually doesn't make sense for me to do that. Let me just mine at home. Let me just mine in China. And if I go to jail, so be it, right? Like, incentives are a beautiful thing. And this has been my primary argument as to why Bitcoin inevitably wins, right? Is that the incentives are so much better for Bitcoin and Bitcoiners than they are for anything else, right? Bitcoin doesn't need a government. It doesn't need regulations. It doesn't need enforcement for people to use and adopt Bitcoin. People adopt Bitcoin because it's better money. It has a better incentive structure. And if I were to bet between incentives and coercion, my money's always going to be on incentives. Opti?
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. Now, I find the more interesting angle here is, well, one, Nico's made the case in the past, and we're not going to rehash that, but it did seem like the last bull run ended because of the China mining ban. Now, a lot of people kind of push back on that people have different reasons for why they think the 2021 cycle ended, but it seemed like it ended basically because of the China mining ban. And now, throughout the time that I've been in Bitcoin, I can't even count how many times China's banned Bitcoin, and it's never stopped Bitcoin. And even though that the last one was kind of the biggest, like maybe the most noted one, because it was a big deal at the time, it does seem to have ended the last bull run. Now I think we are in a totally different era. Well, hold on. One, I think, like Nico was saying, the incentives are everything, and I think China basically realized like we can't actually stop this. So it was interesting that you saw 50% of the hash rate drop off 2021, and now China is basically back to being one of the top mining countries of the world, which is something that I think if you've been in Bitcoin long enough, you knew that this was going to happen. I think though, and this is me speculating, I think what is kind of a more interesting data point is that China is, again, back to being the third, largest country mining Bitcoin, and the Chinese government's kind of looking away from it. Well, what fundamentally changed last year that would probably cause them to turn a blind eye? They probably are trying to save face here. It's obviously the Trump administration saying we are going to be the Bitcoin superpower of the world. And
I totally didn't see that.
Yeah, and now they're like, oh, okay, hey, look, like, we haven't officially unbanned Bitcoin, but we're not going to attack you guys because, again, Bitcoin has become a geopolitical macro kind of, not just investment, but like a macro geopolitical battlefield, is whether you're going to embrace Bitcoin or you're going to maintain down the money printer dollar fiat train, or, as we've seen, you're going to try to accumulate as much gold as possible. So there is a monetary war going on right now, and China has been stacking a lot of gold. Obviously, the U.S. is still fiat maxis, but they are embracing Bitcoin. And so it really does feel like a, Mexican standoff here where, yeah, China's kind of realizing, you know what, like, we can't actually enforce this because we might be losing against the US in regards to adopting Bitcoin. And if we keep fighting this and this Bitcoin thing does work out, we might have just done the same thing we did with gold and silver, but now with gold and Bitcoin. And so I legitimately think this might be one of the factors going on right now. So one, obviously, it's cool to see that the China mining FUD or China mining ban is finally like it's come to an end. Yeah, 4 years later. But two, I think fundamentally the difference now is the Trump administration coming out being pro Bitcoin. I don't think China has the luxury of being able to be like, yeah, we're gonna ban this thing. In 2021, it seemed like the thing to do. Every country wasn't really embracing Bitcoin. But now there are multiple countries embracing Bitcoin, and the U.S. claims to be one of them. And everyone knows that there is this beef between China, the U.S., and, of course, Russia. And I don't think they have the luxury of just being like, yeah, we're going to ban this thing anymore. They're like, I think that's completely been taken off the table now. And maybe finally we can put the China bans to rest, because I don't think they can do it anymore. I don't think that card has any weight anymore.
Dude, it just didn't work. Like, it just didn't work. Like, it didn't work. Like, the incentives of Bitcoin are too powerful. And again, like, this is why I keep harping on this idea that, like, I'm so confident we're gonna win because of this specific region, like, because of this specific reason. Like, they don't. Are we good?
Yeah,
they
dude,
don't.
I'm like a freaking cat over here.
They don't really have like a response to us. Like, their response is just doubling down on coercion, doubling down on forcing people to do something. But as you could see, the Bitcoin network incentivizes people to do things. Anyways, guys, we're gonna hit the culture segment. We have lots to cover. We're gonna be right back in just a bit.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technology. Why HIVE in 2025? Unstoppable growth. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's position to quadruple their global footprint, making them one of the world's fastest growing miners in 2025. And with elite operations that consistently top the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash, HIVE's now headquartered in the USA. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable Bitcoin mining. You can catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. I want to give a shout out to our partner, bitcoinben.io. If you're into freedom, Bitcoin, and building a real community, this is for you. Gain exclusive access to real-world, members-only, private clubs across the globe, featuring poker nights, expert-led classes, co-working spaces, educational meetups, live events, and more. Current locations include Sarasota, Nashville, Boston, Dallas, Las Vegas, and St. Louis, with new clubs launching soon in West Palm Beach, Scottsdale, Alabama, and beyond. Not to mention Bitcoin Ben's resorts in El Salvador. There's 3 of them, and they're absolutely beautiful. You'll also get access to the first fully backed Bitcoin bank with fiat ramps and savings accounts. It's called Private Key Bank, and you guessed it, it's based out of El Salvador. Go peer-to-peer with Bitcoin bulk buys, tap into home equity for long-term Bitcoin growth, and join their exclusive mining pools if you're interested in mining. What are you waiting for? Head over to bitcoinben.io, join today, where Bitcoin meets freedom.
Alrighty then, guys, we are back. Forgive me up front. I am going to do a little chart boying. Not actually chart boying. I'm not really drawing lines, but as I was telling you at the beginning, and I did want to, Nico was trying to tease it earlier, but as I was telling you, I went to dinner last night. We went to a cool steakhouse. It was kind of a vibe. Got a few drinks. It was cool. It was shouts out to Oliver. He's a really cool dude. I met him for the first time last night, but our buddy Sal, it trains both of us, and he's like, he's in town. You want to go to dinner? I'm like, hell yeah, dude. Like, I'm trying to pick his brain. This guy's been trading longer than I have. And literally was trading on Wall Street before I was even born, which is just like mind blowing. And I don't mean to age you, Oliver. And I did ask his permission if I could name drop him on today's show. I'm like, yo, I'm basically just gonna recap what we talked about tonight on tomorrow's show. And he's like, yeah, cool, bro. Like that's all cool. Anyways, the main kind of idea that I was laying out earlier for you guys is, since the institutions got in Bitcoin, essentially since 2023, you can look at it as like a new type of investor coming into the market. And I've been making this case for you guys throughout the whole year. Obviously, I didn't know where the price was going to run, but just something felt different. And I brought on a couple different friends on the show, like shouts out Mitchell Hoddle. He was one of the first ones to really kind of hit me to this idea that when the ETFs launched, it fundamentally shifted how the Bitcoin cycle's price works. And me and Oliver and Sal were talking about this last night. And, I even kind of asked him about the whole JP Morgan attacking strategy. And he's like, dude, just look at who are the top shareholders of strategy. It's basically all of Wall Street. It makes no sense to me for JP Morgan to attack strategies. Like, it makes no sense to me that JP Morgan would attack Bitcoin when they're making so much money as the authorized participant of the BlackRock ETF. People forget that JP Morgan is the AP for the IBIT. They're literally printing fiat right now with that IBIT AP. Like, JP Morgan is more incentivized than anyone right now to see this thing do well. He did agree with me on kind of the more Simon Dixon angle, where the real battle is Wall Street versus Bitcoin in self-custody. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I think's going on. But I was kind of just comparing notes because, again, as we've told you on the show over the years, over and over and over and over again, is that Nico and I, and I'm sure a lot of you guys, like, we learned about the traditional financial system through the Bitcoin lens. And so I tell you guys constantly, I'm on the show essentially learning with you. My job here, or rather maybe what I'm good at, is just like, I'm a good curator. I know where the signal's from, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around what's going on. And so I that's basically what I was doing at the dinner last night. I'm like, look, Oliver's been doing this way longer than me. One of the earliest kind of Wall Street hedge funds to use the internet. He was joking about his early internet website, and he's like, don't make fun of me for how bad it looks now, but it was state of the art back then. We even trolled Jim Cramer a little bit. I told him my story that I tell you guys all the time is when I first got into Bitcoin, my friend sat me down to watch Jim Cramer, and I got laughed at Charles Schwab because I didn't have enough money to start an account. And he's like, that's such a good story. You need to tell that more often. I'm like, all right, man. Anyways, the takeaway from this, probably the biggest signal, and someone dropped it in the chat earlier, is he's like, bro, I've seen this happen before. He was, kind of aging himself. He's like, I was there when we adopted the internet. Like, I was there when the world adopted the computer. Like, I was there when the world adopted the smartphone. And every time that happened, it sounded exactly like what people are saying about Bitcoin today. It's like, that's never going to catch on. It's never going to work. That's for criminals. That's for idiots. That's for children. And he's like, dude, I've seen this before, because he's had so much experience in markets. He's been trading forever. And again, I don't mean to age you, bro. But that's where I personally think I have a pretty good understanding of what's going on. Obviously, I need to learn more, and I'm constantly updating my kind of world models, my point of views. But I'm lacking the experience of being in markets for decades, for as long as I've been alive. So I was really excited to go to this dinner. And again, Oliver's like, yo, I've seen this play out before. I'm pretty sure. And he's like, I don't know exactly, but I think what is going on right now with Bitcoin is one, kind of the IPO meme. And as I was telling you, 100K is the start for all of these institutions. This is their initial get in Bitcoin. He's like, there's still a long way to roll after this. He's like, we've been here from the initial beginning of the IPO prices. But if you look at an IPO, when does the stock really start? It's after the IPO sell. So that number is 100K. And the institutions are here, and they're trying to build long-term positions. But again, Yeah, I'm gonna troll the chat. You guys are funny. Anyways. He's like, what I see in the market right now, ever since the ETF, and I've been saying this, it's like ever since the ETF, I think it's fundamentally shifted the Bitcoin price. And I was like, dude, I agree. I've been saying that forever. And he's like, again, with his experience, he's like, I saw this happen before, and it was with the gold ETF. And so I'm going to pull up the gold ETF chart here just so we can look at this. Oh, man, it refreshed on me. Okay, so I guess maybe we'll start with the Bitcoin price because it's already here. All right, so here is the Bitcoin price. Let me pull this up. And here's the so I don't know if this is alpha for you guys, but I found on TradingView that you can find this Bitcoin USD with crypto. And I think this is aggregating all of the exchanges into one chart. Kind of handy. I've kind of really been liking that. Anyways, of course, Bitcoin, you know the story. You know, boom, bust, bull markets, bear markets, goes up, it goes down, violently volatile, it swings. Then we kind of got neutered in 2021, bear market 2022 until 2023. And then this is where kind of the story really starts to, I think, change. Since the ETFs launched, this price structure, and I'm on the month. Let me go back to like the week because you can see a little more data. Things are just kind of like fundamentally different here. And I think it was around here is when the ETFs launch, and it goes up and then it kind of pulls back, goes up 30% retraces. And here we are on the 30% retrace. And he's like, I've seen this play out before. And this was when you look at gold. He's like, when gold had its ETF moment in 2004, before that, it had essentially boom and bust cycles as well. But ever since the ETF was launched, it had essentially a 10-year bull market. Now, this is as far back as I can go. Gold spot US dollar or XAU/US dollar. It's 1970. You can see it doesn't look exactly like Bitcoin, but there is some parabolic moves up. There is some violent crashes. Again, it zigzags. It starts bouncing a lot. Yes, there was kind of a prolonged bear market sideways action, but then you can see in 2004 right here, it literally went just up and to the right for 10 years. And so the takeaway is, yeah, we might not be seeing 21x, 21 times returns in Bitcoin anymore, but you might just be getting a slow, unlimited bid up and to the right. And yes, there was kind of a bear market here in 2013 to about 2019, and then it just started ripping up again. And he's like, this is kind of what happens to an asset that matures. Once it gets to ETF, the market structure fundamentally changes. Gold used to be very wild, very volatile. It got the ETF. It went into a 10-year bull market up and to the right. Yes, it's not as flashy as getting 21x gains, but it doesn't get insane pullbacks either. And I think that was like, I've been kind of saying this for a while, but I think because of my lack of experience and I wasn't around for the gold, 2004, I was like 14. Was I 14? Yeah, no. Yeah, 2004, I was 14. That's crazy. So obviously I didn't have that experience, but he's like, dude, I've seen this play out. And the narratives around Bitcoin are all the same thing. What the institutions are doing in Bitcoin right now, he's like, it's the same playbook. He's like, it's just with a new thing. And I think the kind of takeaway of this, they're like, okay, cool story, bro. But like, how do I win through this process if this is what's going on? And it's the same thing we tell you guys all the time. It's just accumulating more Bitcoin. As I was saying earlier, the name of the game is Bitcoin is the finish line. You're not getting Bitcoin so that you can, trade it for more dollars or so you can trade it for the Lambo. You can do that if you want to, but we all had this kind of laughing moment where like the Bitcoin Zen end goal is like, whenever you have dollars, you're panicking until you get into Bitcoin. But once you get into Bitcoin, you take this deep breath and you're like, all right, finally, like I'm finally safe. I got it into Bitcoin. We're good to go. So you know, I'm sure that was a long-winded way. I could have probably done that way shorter, but I think it is very interesting. And my boys in the chat right now. My boys in the chat. I've told you. I don't know if you've been watching the show. I still troll you when we text message, but you look. I'll give it to you, bro. You called the tops. You called the recent bottoms. I think you're not fully factoring in certain variables here. You're as you put it yourself. I'm looking at momentum, time, and price. And while I think that may have worked in the past, you might you might get wrecked right now, bro. You might be left with no shirt because I think things have fundamentally changed. I just think things are different now. We have a new investor. There's a whole new hype cycle. There's a whole new marketing wing from Wall Street trying to get into Bitcoin. There's a whole new greed element. There's a whole new investor that is just starting in Bitcoin. And I don't believe that we can just kind of look back at what has happened in Bitcoin and not acknowledge things have changed. So, you know, I'm not gonna put all your business out there, bro. But personally, I would not be selling out of my Bitcoin position right now. I get if you need a little bit to live, but I wouldn't be doing that, dude. I don't want to be I told you so, but I might be telling you so in the future that you got wrecked. Okay. Oh man. All right, guys. Anyways, Nico had to pop off. Let me see. I'll read that. No, guys. No one's hacking our stream with the electricity. We've had like weird surges all morning, and I think we just needed to reset the router. And then we're going to get new cords in here. So hopefully it never happens again. But I think we just had to reset the router. So there's no hack going on. I just think, yeah, you are, dude. Sorry. I'm literally talking to the chat. All right. Anyways, this was today's show. I hope you guys got some value from this. Again, I think what I like to do is, not just like kind of pontificate and preach here, but I'm always updating my mental models as we do this because I'm a seeker of truth. I want to know the truth. I'm not just trying to know the truth so that I can say I know the truth. I want to know the truth so that I can position myself moving into the future, the next 10, 20 years. And I want to bring you guys along with me. If what I believe is correct, then we're all going to be living a better life. And I think that's what we really want to do. Again, I've been saying for a while, it's like getting our wealth up, our influence up, our health up. That's the most important things to be doing. And if this is how we can reach you guys through YouTube, then, maybe we are building a cult here. The cult of Opti. All right, guys. I love you guys. I will see you tomorrow. Again, thank you for bearing with us. Hopefully we have this figured out tomorrow. I really think it's just a reset of the router. Anyways, on that note, guys, peace out. Have a good rest of your day. Eat some good food. Maybe get a workout and a walk, all that good stuff. It's been your boy Opti. It's Tuesday, November 25th. And I don't know what the current Bitcoin price is, like $87. So anyways, whatever. Peace out.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.